Hello there, I'm Big Alias. Hello there. Gamers. There's news. There's gamer news. The PS5 Pro has been announced. It's officially been announced. We all knew it was coming, but I guess this is the worst kept secret in gaming. Well, except not really. It seems that game companies are just not very good at holding this stuff in, or it's intentional. But yeah, PS5 Pro has been announced. You know, nothing makes me feel older than following gaming news. It's like, I'm just still in the mindset of, but I've got a 360. Do I need an Xbox One? You know, I'm still way far back. The passage of time just happens so much, you know, more rapidly the older you get, and I am 30 now. But it makes sense. You know, they released the PS4 in 2013, and I'm pretty sure they released the PS4 Pro in 2017. So it's a 4-year gap, 2020 to 2024. 4-year gap. It's how they do it. So it makes sense in terms of timing, but I will speak potentially a little bit about that later. So what do you get? Well, I'm getting this from an ad. It says larger GPU, very ambiguous, but I have seen some stats that, you know, it's quite a bit larger. Advanced ray tracing, again, tremendously ambiguous. AI-driven upscaling, and it's a diskless console. Diskless. Well, that's it then. I think that is the plan going forward. And you know, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to nip it in the bud. Oh, it releases on November the 7th. I'm just going to nip it in the bud. I'm going to say it. It's an eye-watering $700 for a diskless console. Jesus Christ. $700 and also £700. So, yes, that is a lot of money. And I've heard that the reason that it's the same amount in pounds as it is in dollars, despite the fact that it really shouldn't be, is because maybe you guys in the US do your prices pre-tax because you have different tax bands per state. Will you stop confusing things? You have different time zones and different tax bands and different licenses, for Christ's sakes, per state. Can you just put it all into one, please? Soon we're going to be getting the Tennessee accent, the Tennessee language, and the Mississippi friggin' flag. Actually, that's a Confederate flag, isn't it? But yes, £700, which roughly translates as $913 by today's money. Jesus Christ. That is a lot of money for a games console. I don't care what anyone says. It's almost $1,000 for your PlayStation. Jesus Christ. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, oh, shut up, dude. Get your money up. Stop being a broke bitch. You know, if you're going to say that, then I'll just ignore it because that's completely invalid. But there are people who will say, you know, it's a powerful machine. It's got the hardware. It's going to cost more. And, you know, usually in terms of that, I'll have some sort of rebuttal. I'll do like a deep dive into why I disagree. But in this case, it's just too much. It's just too much money to charge for a games console. Since we established the Power 3, you know, the PlayStation, the Xbox, and the Nintendo, since we established that around about between 30 and 25 years ago, since we established that hierarchy, we have never had a console that even came close to costing this much. Not even close. Geez, $700. That is so much money, you know. And if you can't get the parts for less than $700 and put it all together for $700, then don't. It's just too much freaking much. Just don't bother with the PlayStation Pro if you're going to do that. It just doesn't seem right. I mean, I guess if they make money off of it, then okay. And, you know, you don't have to have a PS5 Pro, but it just feels like such a bizarre price point. You know, I'm sure they could have gone for slightly cheaper components and charged for less, or as they used to. I'm not sure how many people actually know this, but game companies used to create these consoles at a loss. They used to make these at a loss, and they would make their money. Now, I'm just assuming off of their percentage cut of the software. So, you know, they would run it at a loss, but then they'd make a percent on every game that's sold. And given that sometimes you'll sell, like back in the day, you know, between 2 and 5 million at the most copies, that is a lot of wonga in the pocket. You know, that's a lot of money. So that's how they would make all of their money, not on the hardware. I think from what I've heard, and I'm slightly paraphrasing here, so I could be wrong here, but because this is all gathered from video essays, during the 8th gen, the Xbox One and PS4, they actually tried to make a profit off of the consoles, and then with the more recent ones, they actually pulled that back, and they're now once again running the consoles at a loss. This feels like they're going back to the trying to make a profit of the consoles thing, and that just seems wrong. That seems particularly wrong when you consider the fact that games aren't made on discs anymore. This thing doesn't even take discs as much as I'd like them to, and they are technically still made on discs. I just bought Space Marine 2 on disc, but for the most part, people don't buy games on disc anymore. So it's a completely different prospect. They're not just making a fraction of the cost of the game. They're not just making a percentage during the handshake of the developers, the publishers, the distributors, the game stores, and then them. It's a much larger split, and I would say a split that's probably in the tens of percentages in terms of how much more they're making than they used to on games, just on percentage alone, just on a video game sale alone. It goes straight to the store. You don't have to worry about distributors. You don't have to worry about the production of the discs. You don't have to worry about the game stores. None of that. It goes straight to you and the publisher. It's just a couple of people, two guys chilling in a PlayStation store, and they're $5 billion apart because they're not gay. And then you have the microtransactions, the rise of microtransactions, and how much more money a game will make, after the fact. You have the fact that games have gone up in price by quite a fair amount. I don't care what people say. I stand by this. In the UK, I know it's not the same in the US, but in the UK, games didn't go from £60 to £70. They went from, in 2013, £40 to, I think it was 2021 when they went up to £70 to £70, almost doubling in that time. And that is a lot of money, especially when we're talking about now somewhere between 9 and 10 million units sold. If you're talking about a large percentage of that, you are making a buttload of money. So much friggin' money. So much money. It's eye-watering. So to charge that much for the console, for the entry point, just doesn't seem right. It seems as though the trend would not be moving towards upping the price, but instead towards lowering the price to get as many people onto the platform as possible, so that you can make that big chunk of money on as many game sales as possible. It just seems odd to me. And in terms of what you get, like I said, it's all very ambiguous. I know I'm just reading this from a post and there are stats out there, but when it comes to advanced ray tracing, you can't stat that. You can't put statistics on that. And when it comes to, and this one really worries me, AI-driven upscaling. Firstly, read the room, too. People are not happy with AI currently. So to try to sell your console on that, especially to pretty much the audience of people who would buy this, hate AI with a passion. So I don't know why you would use that. And plus, when it comes to both of these things, ray tracing and upscaling, these are big asks, of these consoles. With this generation, there were a lot of checks that were not cashed, a lot of promises that were not made. We were promised 120 FPS, and in some cases, 120 FPS in 4K. And the result that we got was, listen, if we're going to run this game at 4K, it's going to have to run at 3 FPS. Like, it's been pathetic. Game developers have not been able to nail 60 FPS, 4K in a generation where we were promised 120 FPS and 60 FPS on every 4K experience guaranteed. They couldn't even do that. And now the promo for the PS5 Pro is the thing that they said the PS5 could do anyway. In the comparison videos, I'm seeing fidelity mode, which does give you 4K, but 30 FPS on the PS5, but running at 60 FPS on the PS5 Pro. So, like I said, you're just giving us the thing that you said we were going to get anyway with the PS5. So if they couldn't achieve it with the PS5, then why should I believe any of these promises? I haven't played a single game with ray tracing on my Series X. Maybe there's a couple of games on the PS5, but they don't have that many exclusives. And given how many exclusives there have been for this generation, if all of them had ray tracing, then we're talking about like maybe 5 games or maybe 10 at the most that actually use ray tracing and absolutely demolish the game when they do. So when it comes to them saying AI-driven upscaling, we have a console that can't even figure out 60 FPS 4K, can't even run games well. We still get broken messes of games, and you're telling me that you're going to be able to program AI to dynamically, presumably, upscale these games? Are you fucking kidding me? AI can't even figure out how to continue a meme without getting Agent Smith to run in and do a backflip and then turn into a pretzel without complete... It just doesn't work. AI is not at that point yet, and it's not even close to being at that point in terms of video. Now, that's just video. We're talking about video games. We're talking about freaking gaming, a system that will have to integrate itself with the game like programming and the root and the engine and everything. It'll have to sophisticatedly, intricately interweave itself with the game and then produce something that upscales. I'm sorry, I really don't think so. I don't think it's capable of doing that, especially not now, and I definitely don't think it will be capable of doing that at the end of the generation. So I would say going into this, if you are thinking of getting a PS5, please be cautious, because there are a lot of promises being made here, and I'm not sure if they can achieve any of them. And from what I've seen from the gameplay comparisons, I mean, just look at them yourself. Go out there and look at some gameplay comparisons, because it's just not impressive at all. And I'm not impressed. So that's the PS5 Pro. Proceed with caution, and I'll see everyone later.
The PlayStation is only $149, and you can also get leading titles.